You claim you want to let go, that you want to move forward. Then explain this. Why does their image occupy your thoughts daily? Why, despite the pain they caused, do you still long for them? Why does each alert from your phone make your pulse race, hoping it's their name on the screen, even now? Stop deceiving yourself. It isn't the actual person you're missing. You miss the ideal you created and placed upon them. The fantasy of a connection, the mirror of what you wished they were. Carl Jung wrote that whatever we fail to confront within ourselves will appear to us as destiny. And perhaps this is precisely the situation you find yourself in right now. This isn't merely about getting over a failed relationship. You're standing before a reflection, one that's revealing a truth you've long been afraid to acknowledge. This video isn't a collection of hollow self-help platitudes or a guide to pretending you're fine. Here, the truth will be painful. It will press on the bruises you've kept hidden. But ultimately, it is what will liberate you. The truth is harsh. Frequently, what we label as love is simply our own shadow attaching itself to someone who validates our deepest wounds. It is your unconscious mind pleading for acknowledgement, even if that means clinging to a person who tears you down. That isn't love. It is a cage. And what if this dependency, this ache, this anxiety you feel when you are ignored or dismissed has zero to do with them and everything to do with what you haven't yet discovered in yourself? In this video, I will lead you on a profound, shadowy, and life-altering journey. We will delve into the hidden workings of your psyche, grasp why you attach to those who harm you, and, crucially, learn how to start breaking free. But be ready. What you are about to discover may not be pleasant, because the truth rarely is. But only by confronting this reality will you finally cease begging for affection and begin to find your own self. Are you prepared? If so, let us begin. Have you ever paused to question why you feel such a strong bond with someone who is clearly bad for you? Why, even when you see the mistreatment, the manipulation, and the hurt, a part of you still craves more? The solution doesn't lie with the other person. It lies within you, and it's far deeper than you can imagine. Carl Jung viewed relationships as more than just social exchanges. For him, every emotional connection is fundamentally a reflection of the unconscious. When we fall for someone, we aren't seeing them for who they are. We are projecting parts of ourselves that we are unaware of or have been conditioned to suppress throughout our lives. This is the process Jung identified as psychic projection. Your attachment is not to the person themselves, but to what they symbolize in your inner world. They may have unknowingly embodied the archetype of the anima or animus, the fundamental images of the feminine and masculine that reside in our collective unconscious. These archetypes represent what we lack, what we believe we need to be whole. But when they are projected onto another person, they forge an illusion so powerful that we mistake reliance for wholeness and submission for love. The issue arises when what starts as admiration and infatuation becomes an obsession because the other person fails to live up to the idealized image we have created. And that is when we begin to lose our sense of self. We settle for crumbs, rationalize toxic behavior, and engage in self-sabotage, all for a love that never truly existed as we perceived it. It wasn't love. It was an emotional deficit disguised as an unconscious fantasy. And for as long as you search externally for what is missing internally, you will forever be a prisoner to another's validation. You become ensnared by unread messages, inconsistent attention, and approval that never materializes. This all happens because your unconscious is convinced that only through someone else can you find your own worth. But Jung gives us a warning. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. You will fall into the same traps, repeat the same cycles, and choose the same people with new faces. And this is not misfortune. It is an unconscious destiny. So how can you break free from this pattern? How do you stop molding yourself to fit the emotional needs of others and begin to reconnect with your authentic self? This is what we will delve into next. the unconscious quest for validation, and the cost of self-betrayal. If this message resonates with you, please click the subscribe button and join the channel. Your support is appreciated. You were taught at a young age that you had to please others to be loved, that you had to be compliant, helpful, and appealing to earn someone's presence. And from this, you forged a persona, a meticulously constructed mask, designed to meet the desires of others. But each time you reshape yourself to align with someone else's expectations, you drift further from your true identity. Carl Jung termed this the persona, the character we develop to navigate the social sphere. It serves a purpose, but when we begin to believe that we are nothing more than this mask, we start to smother the self, our authentic core. This is precisely what unfolds in relationships defined by emotional dependency. You dim your own brilliance to keep the other person near. You suppress your needs, your pain, and your very essence to avoid abandonment. The problem is that the external validation you so desperately crave in their gaze, their touch, their approval, is never satisfying. Because no matter how many times they tell you you're wonderful, if you feel deep down that you're living a performance, the emptiness will persist. It's like attempting to quench a thirst with air. This void that consumes you is not a longing for that person. It is a longing for yourself, for the parts of you that were sacrificed for acceptance, for the liberty to exist without the constant fear of being left behind. And as long as you rely on the other to define who you are, every moment of their absence will feel like a collapse. Every silence will be taken as rejection. Every critique will feel like a devastating blow. And this is the breeding ground for anxiety. That constriction in your chest, the sleepless nights, the fixation on messages, the perpetual state of emotional alert. Because fundamentally, your fear isn't losing the other person. It's the terror of being forced to look at yourself and discover you no longer recognize who you are outside of that relationship. But this anxiety is not your adversary. It is a signal, a sign that your psyche is in a state of conflict, that aspects of you are fighting to be seen, but you keep shoving them down into the cellar of your unconscious. And the more you attempt to suppress them, the more intensely they cry out. This is when we can grasp the true purpose of anxiety in toxic relationships. It isn't just a byproduct, it is the soul's emergency siren. And to address it, you must go beyond the symptoms. You must confront the root causes. In the next section, we will go deeper, how anxiety stems from inner fragmentation and what it is attempting to reveal to you about yourself. You call it anxiety, but it is actually the suppressed cry of the parts of you that have been abandoned, rejected, and severed for the sake of love. It is your soul signaling that something is profoundly wrong, that you are living an emotional falsehood, that the cost of maintaining this connection is far too steep, and the one paying the price is your authentic self. Carl Jung illustrates that the human psyche is built of many layers, both conscious and unconscious, that require balance. When you stifle who you truly are to preserve a relationship, that equilibrium is shattered. What's left is a severe internal fracture. And this fracture manifests itself as anxiety. It's more than just a fear of being left alone. It's a quiet war between what you truly feel and what you permit yourself to express. Each time you hold back tears to avoid being a burden, each time you say, "I'm okay," while you are breaking apart inside, you strengthen that internal division. Anxiety then emerges as a psychic defense mechanism. It's your unconscious mind's effort to restore balance. It's as if a war is raging within you. On one side, the false self begs for external validation. On the other, the suffocated true self demands authenticity. You feel that tightness in your chest because you are forcing yourself into a space that was never meant for you. You feel your heart pound because your soul is trying to escape a life that doesn't belong to it. You feel the persistent fear of losing the other because deep down, you have already lost yourself. And this torment won't vanish with a returned text, a reconciliation, or a fresh promise. Because the issue is not the other person, it is your disconnection from your own core. As long as you search outside for what can only be mended within, anxiety will remain your constant shadow. But Jung shows us that this fragmentation isn't an endpoint. It is a summons, an invitation for you to reintegrate, to look inward, to hear what this distress is telling you, and to reclaim the pieces of yourself you left behind. And this leads us to one of the most potent and perilous forces of the unconscious, the shadow. In the next part, we will examine how the psychological shadow drives the repetition of toxic dynamics and why you consistently choose what harms you. If you genuinely desire freedom, you must be prepared to face what you have hidden from yourself. You believe your choices in relationships are conscious. But what if I were to tell you that, more often than not, it is the most hidden area of your mind that is making the decision for you? That you aren't the one choosing the pain. Your shadow is, that concealed, disowned, and buried part of you that, from the silence of your unconscious, still dictates your life. Carl Jung described the shadow as everything you are, but refused to be. Everything that society, family, or culture deemed unacceptable, ugly, or shameful, which you, in your need for acceptance, pushed into the depths of your psyche. But suppression is not elimination. What you repress becomes latent psychic energy seeking an outlet. And do you know where the shadow loves to play out? Relationships. You are drawn to what mirrors your own shadow, and that's why, without knowing it, you repeat the same damaging cycle with different partners. The names and faces change, but the script remains the same. You diminish yourself. The other person hurts you. You take the blame. You plead for scraps and call it love. This is not just bad luck. This is destiny forged by your own inner darkness. Do you find yourself involved with people who are emotionally distant, narcissistic, or manipulative? Ask yourself, what do these connections reveal about the parts of me I keep hidden? Perhaps you disown your own anger, your need to be seen, your desire for agency. And so you submit to someone who perfectly embodies the very traits you won't allow in yourself. The shadow operates in this way, by projecting itself onto others. You despise in them what you cannot accept in yourself. You adore in them what you have abandoned in yourself. It is a brutal yet essential game that continues until you confront what you hide. Because as long as your shadow remains unacknowledged, it will continue to attract circumstances that force you to see it. Jung famously said, "What you resist persists." Fleeing from toxic relationships is not enough. You must understand their pull on you. And that takes courage. The courage to look inside and admit that a part of the turmoil originates from within you, that you hold on to old wounds, unresolved traumas, and repressed desires, all of which need to be integrated, not denied. So, how do we turn this shadow into a source of strength? How do we break the cycle of emotional self-sabotage and rebuild the most vital relationship of all, the one with ourselves? This is the journey Jung called the process of individuation, and in the next section, we will explore this path back to your center and how individuation can mark the start of your emotional freedom. Now that you have glimpsed your shadow, are you ready to begin the work of healing? If what I'm saying is resonating, you'll find immense value in my ebook, Beyond the Shadow. It explains Jung's foundational concepts and provides practical tools for deeper self-understanding. You can find the link in the pinned comment. There comes a moment when you know you cannot continue to live a fractured life. You can no longer be split in two, the person you present to the world and the one screaming on the inside. It is precisely at this point, when the pain becomes unbearable, that the genuine healing journey can commence. For Carl Jung, this is the dawn of individuation, the psychological journey where a person ceases to be controlled by their social masks and hidden wounds and starts to become who they are truly meant to be. But make no mistake, individuation is not a light or easy path. It is a direct confrontation. You will have to face everything you've run from, your deep-seated insecurities, your past traumas, your self-defeating behaviors. You will have to see the roles you played in your own suffering and acknowledge that, for a long time, you were a party to your own pain. Not because you enjoyed suffering, but because you knew no other way to exist. Because your very sense of self was built on lack, the need for validation, and the fear of being cast aside. Individuation starts when you stop pursuing those who cannot see you and begin to examine yourself with unflinching honesty. When you ask, "Why do I abandon myself so completely to keep someone else close? What void am I desperately trying to fill? What piece of myself do I sacrifice each time I beg for love?" These questions are agonizing, but they are what will tear down the walls of illusion. Through this process, you start to reclaim the abandoned parts of your soul. Every boundary you enforce, every time you choose quiet strength over desperate pleas, every time you say no instead of conceding, you are saying yes to your true self. You are breaking free from the false self that was built to please and constructing a new self, more integrated, whole, and liberated. And this is the most transformative part. When you reconnect with your own center, the other person is no longer your savior. You no longer require external acceptance to feel worthy. You no longer need to plead for affection to feel complete, because you are finally home in your own body, your own mind, and your own truth. Jung said that individuation is the fulfillment of the self, the very core of your being, liberated from the persona's masks and the shadow's tyranny. It is then that you see you never needed those who harmed you to feel alive. You simply needed to remember that your pain is not your identity. It is just one chapter in your story. But before we finish this journey, there is one final step. We must understand what this all means in practice, how to take this knowledge and apply it to your daily life, how to truly sever the tie with those who cause you pain. And most importantly, how to convert that severance into inner strength. You have come this far because, on some level, you knew a change was necessary. Perhaps you couldn't articulate the pain. You might have called it weakness, neediness, or dependency. But you now see it for what it was, the call of your soul. A silent cry telling you that you've tolerated too much, given up too much, and strayed so far from yourself that your own reflection has become a stranger. Releasing your attachment isn't about amnesia. It is not about deleting memories or faking indifference. It is a process of comprehension, acceptance, and liberation. It's recognizing that the person who hurt you was a part of one chapter, but they do not belong in the rest of the book. That clinging to a bond with someone who destroys you is like trying to swim across an ocean while holding on to an anchor. You will go under before you ever reach the shore. And do not be mistaken, letting go is painful. Breaking these invisible bonds demands immense strength because you are not just leaving a person behind, you are laying to rest your expectations, your fantasies, your idealized images, and the hopes that never came to be. But this pain is sacred, for it is the pain of being reborn. It is the grief that is necessary for you to return to yourself so that you can finally inhabit the space that was once consumed by another's absence. You no longer have to shrink yourself to fit into constricting relationships. You no longer need to conform to the expectations of those who cannot see your soul. The time has arrived to choose yourself, to prioritize your own well-being, not from a place of selfishness, but from a place of integrity. Because as long as you continue trying to salvage broken connections, you will always be moving further from your own salvation. Carl Jung stated that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, and maybe that is the most powerful choice you can make today. Not to change another person, not to repair the past, but to decide, with the full force of your being, that you will live from your own truth, without masks, without chains, and without repeating patterns that only bring you pain. So I ask you, what must you release to finally claim your freedom? Write it in the comments below. Treat this space as a ritual of release, a symbolic gesture of your liberation. Write it as if you are speaking to yourself, because you are. And if this message has reached you, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Here, you will not find simple answers, but you will discover profound truths that can alter the trajectory of your life. And one final thought: don't let the journey end here. The next video is as vital as this one. It may hold the very piece you need to complete this puzzle.